What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Figures of Sport podcast with Brandon and friends, now on YouTube. So we finally are putting a face to the podcast, and this has been something in the works for quite some time. I've been wanting to do this for quite a while. We've made the jump to Instagram, and Instagram, has been going well, and we are going to be making the jump to Twitter very soon. We are just trying to figure out a handle that hasn't been taken. So we are currently in the process of that, but like I said, I've finally made the jump to YouTube, and I've been wanting to do this for such a long time. And now that we are currently under the order to social distance, I figure why not take this time to make the jump and expand. So I want to give, before we jump into anything, I want to give a huge shout out to everyone who has supported the podcast from the beginning. Your support means everything to me. I genuinely could not be here without the support of everyone from the beginning. And the people that have been on the show as guests, I give another huge shout out to you, just because the content would be nowhere near as good without the input that I've received from the people that have been on the show. So I've received nothing but support, and I cannot thank you guys enough. But as far as an update on availability for the streams, it is now on Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, in addition to Spotify and Apple Podcasts and Spreaker. So if you use any of those streaming services to listen to music or your podcast or whatever, feel free to go give us a listen, or 10, whatever you feel like. We have about 25 episodes or 26 episodes now out online available. So feel free to go ahead and stream. And for those who are new, the Figures of Sport show is really a talk show or a debate show about sports. So we cover the latest news and stories in the sports world, and we have some moments where we get into it, me and the guests. So it's been a really fun experience, and I'm so glad that you guys are all joining. So without further ado, welcome to the Figures of Sport podcast with Brando and friends. I'm your host, Brando, and let's jump in. So the sports world is on hold currently, and the NCAA was the first sports organization to make a statement regarding the coronavirus outbreak. So they initially decided that they would be continuing the remainder of their season under the condition that the only members in attendance were going to be essential personnel, limited family, and of course the players. So, but after that decision, the NCAA called off its men's and women's basketball tournaments as part of a complete cancellation of spring and winter sports. The NCAA Division I Council Committee has recommended that student athletes who participate in spring sports should be provided eligibility relief. That decision has came down, and spring sport athletes will be getting back a year of eligibility, but winter sport athletes will not be. And this has caused a lot of discussion on social media because winter sport athletes, most prominently basketball, has canceled their season, which means the NCAA tournament, which is the NCAA's biggest moneymaker, has been canceled, and now their athletes are not going to be provided eligibility relief. This has been a serious topic of discussion because these athletes train all year long, and their goal from the moment they decide to come to college is to bring the opportunity of going to the NCAA tournament and have the opportunity to win a championship for your school. Now, you are taking the opportunity away this year because of the pandemic. That is something we can't control. It's understandable. But for the NCAA to decide that these athletes should not get another year of eligibility, has raised a lot of, backlash on social media. The NCAA should, in my opinion, should absolutely want athletes to come back for another year, especially seniors who are looking to graduate. They should want to have them come back for another year and play for, what they love to do. Giving students the opportunity to play for an NCAA championship means the world to them. So the fact that the NCAA has decided to kind of go against this and really only provide eligibility relief for spring athletes is something that I'm not sure they will receive a lot of positive comments in, but the fact that spring sport athletes are getting back a year of eligibility is something of a bright spot. So I'm not sure if this will be revisited. This decision will be revisited at all, but if there is any updates, we will continue to, post updates. So just make sure you give us a listen and you can find out. So as far as the NBA, hours later after the NCAA's initial decision, the NBA suddenly stopped all games and announced that they would suspend the season before tip-off between the Utah Jazz and Oklahoma City Thunder. That happened because it came out that a player had contracted the coronavirus. So that player came out to be Rudy Gobert, and this happened shortly after he decided to poke fun at the idea of catching coronavirus. Earlier in the week, he had touched the microphones of media members around him, and really it came out that he was being very, very careless in the locker room, and he was touching other players' belongings and such, but the Oklahoma City Health Department came in and handled the situation exceptionally well. They had to place all of the players and staff under quarantine in Chesapeake Energy Arena, and it did come out that not only Rudy Gobert tested positive, but Donovan Mitchell, another member of the Jazz, one of the young stars in the NBA today, did also test positive for the coronavirus. Now, with a player getting the virus, the league needed to suspend the season, and the reason being, the isolation period of the virus is about 14 days. That's because it can take about 14 days to show symptoms. So this means that the virus may have been present earlier in the week, and it could have been passed on to multiple players, that they have faced. And I believe that a large portion of the league may have been actually, exposed to this. So this leads to the need to quarantine members of other teams. I mean, you have to, because if one player contracts the virus, then without knowing, of course, then that can be passed along to another, to a teammate, as it has in this case, or to an opposing team, this player. And since news came out that Donovan Mitchell had tested positive, there have also been reports saying that the Jazz ownership and Jazz players have been, very upset with him. As I said before, he was careless in the locker room, touching other players' belongings. I think that this is going to cause a little bit of tension in the locker room because this can affect players' livelihoods. So with that being said, I think that the Jazz ownership and the Jazz organization overall have strong leadership throughout, and they will be able to overcome this, but it's going to take some time. But I strongly believe they will be able to overcome this. Donovan Mitchell has, been in interviews and he hasn't been upset about it. But of course, what can you do? That's your teammate. So you still have to put a smile on, but at the same, behind closed doors, there could be some tension. But as I said, I think that will be cleared up if and when they return to action. So speaking of that, the latest update from NBA Commissioner Adam Silver is that although it's probably not what many want to hear, they really won't have a decision on the next steps for continuing the season up until May 1st. That's because a lot of states have continued to, give the stay-at-home order up through April 30th. So the NBA really won't have any idea what they're going to do up until then. They want to see how the situation progresses. Adam Silver, being a very progressive commissioner, I think that he is on top of this. He wants the league to resume action, but he wants to take the best health. He wants to put health before the NBA. So, and rightfully so. So the NBA, he also has said that he wants the NBA to be a very large part in revitalizing the economy and bringing, being part of the recovery. We're going to see someone else say that as well. So, but Golden State Warriors star Steph Curry also interviewed Dr. Anthony Fauci, who's the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, about the pandemic, really just to raise awareness. And, I really applaud you for that, Steph Curry. He's one of the most popular players in the NBA, and the fact that he's using his platform to really kind of raise awareness and give people the correct information is really important. And, it shows that he's taking this seriously because he wants to get back to his life. playing basketball too. So as much as we want to see it, these players want to play it. So NBA Commissioner Adam Silver also said that one potential option for bringing back the sport would be some kind of charity competition. That is in the works. Recent reports have said that they are looking to televise a horse competition, so we will see what happens there. But Major League Baseball owners have approved a plan to address salary and service time issues amid the indefinite delay to the start of the regular season. MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred vows that baseball will be back and will be part of the recovery in an interview with SportsCenter, and said that nothing's off the table as the sport outlines its plan to return. So, quick update on that. There is news that the MLB will be is looking to move to Arizona to play games and start the season down there in empty arenas, so or stadiums. My apologies, but there has been some backlash on that. So we are still unsure if that's something we are going to see. The Major League Baseball draft is also increasingly likely to be pushed back to July, though it could be shortened and include bonus deferrals. So as far as the NFL, they plan to start its 2020 season on time in September, but their chief medical officer said that certain prerequisites, including widespread testing of the coronavirus, must be met for that to happen. The draft will also go on as scheduled April 23rd through 25th, but it will be fully virtual, meaning that for the first time in Las Vegas, the draft will not be happening there. It will be fully virtual amidst the coronavirus pandemic. So a lot of changes going on. As far as the NHL, they've suspended their 2019 season. The league also postponed its draft, combine, and award show. The NHL's chief medical officer is urging caution on the prospect of the NHL returning to play this season, including the idea of playing in empty arenas. This has also been an idea thrown out by the NBA to move the league to Las Vegas and play in empty arenas there. As you know, as the NHL thinks about that, and the MLB thinks about that, and the NBA thinks about that, there has been a lot of caution with this decision. And rightfully so. I think that we need to take the right steps before we start putting these large groups together. There's still the recommendation to not have groups larger than 10. So I think that there needs to be serious progression in the next month for any of these leagues to think about that, in my opinion. I think that I would rather hold off on sports until this is, under control, or at least until we have a better understanding of how to control this. So as far as soccer, UEFA has suspended the Champions League, Europa League, and Euro 2020 qualifying playoffs indefinitely. Euro 2020 has been postponed until 2021. Copa America has been postponed as well. In England, the Premier League is facing a 30% wage cut while the season remains suspended indefinitely. La Liga has also been suspended, and the league said it will not resume until the Spanish government says it's safe to do so. Other major leagues in Europe have been suspended as well: Series A, the Bundesliga, and Liga 1. Belgium is the first European top-tier league to cancel the rest of its season and crown a league champion. In the United States, MLS has pushed back the restart of its season to May 10th. In Mexico, Liga MX has suspended play until further notice. The last major league to stop playing was the Australian A-League, but the Belarus Premier League continues for now. The African Soccer Federation has paused all games, including qualifiers for next year's African Cup of Nations. And the National Women's Super League has suspended the start of its season, originally planned for April 18th, but has yet to release a rescheduled start date. The WNBA will hold its draft April 17th as originally scheduled, but without the gathering of draftees, media, or fans because of the pandemic. The French Open has been postponed and will now run from September 20th to October 4th. I believe Wimbledon has came down with the decision to cancel this year's championships. The ATP and WTA have suspended play on both tours until June 7th, a decision that eliminates the entire clay court circuit through Europe. Horse racing, Churchill Downs has announced that the 146th Kentucky Derby will be moved from May 2nd to September 5th, and Santa Anita canceled live racing Friday after advice from the Los Angeles County Health Department. However, horse racing still goes on at roughly 2 tracks around the U.S. and still goes on internationally. As far as the Olympics, the Tokyo Olympics have officially been postponed for the second time in history, I believe, up until 2021. The organizers said that the start date of the opening ceremony will be July 23rd, 2021, which is almost exactly 1 year after the games were due to start. The officials also confirmed that the 6,200 or so athletes who have punched their tickets will keep their spots for the rescheduled games next year. The XFL completed only half of its scheduled 10-week season before the rest was canceled. Many esports events and tournaments have been postponed or canceled. One major example was Overwatch League events in March and April have been canceled with matches moved to online play. The MMA has postponed, as far as MMA, the UFC has postponed 3 events scheduled for March 21st, 28th, and April 11th. Its next pay-per-view event was scheduled to take place April 18th, but Khabib is in Russia and unable to leave to compete against Tony Ferguson at UFC 249, so that fight will not be happening. The WWE announced last week that former NFL star Rob Gronkowski will host a 2-night WrestleMania event April 4th and 5th at the promotional facility in Orlando, Florida. That happened, I believe it was yesterday or 2 days ago, and he ended up winning the 24/7 championship belt. So Rob Gronkowski just keeps on winning, apparently. So as far as auto racing, the Indianapolis 500 scheduled for May 24th has been postponed until August and won't run on Memorial Day weekend for the first time since 1946. Formula One, the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, became the 8th Formula One race affected by the coronavirus after it was postponed, and the Monaco Grand Prix organizers already announced that the race will not take place in 2020. F1 announced that the 6 more postponements of events in Australia, Bahrain, Vietnam, China, Spain, and the Netherlands. Golf, the Masters, the first major tournament of the year, was officially postponed. The Pga Championship, the second major of the year, was officially postponed. And although the United States Golf Association is sticking to its decision to have a final decision by mid-April, a report in the New York Post said that the U.S. Open would be postponed, with the idea of still playing at the Winged Foot Golf Club in suburban New York later this year. NASCAR plans to reschedule the 7 Cup Series races postponed due to the pandemic. And boxing, the third fight between heavyweight world champion Tyson Fury and former titleist Deontay Wilder is still on track to be their next bout, but it will not take place on July 18th as originally planned. The suspension of professional boxing in the UK has been extended until the end of May, meaning the postponement of 2 big heavyweight fights, Dylan White versus Alexander Povetkin and Alexander Usyk versus Derek Chisora. So that's all. That is the latest news in cancellations and updates for the sports world and coronavirus. Before we close, there's been a few players in the NBA besides Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. I believe 4 players on the Brooklyn Nets tested positive for coronavirus, Kevin Durant being one of them, Marcus Smart of the Boston Celtics, Christian Wood of the Detroit Pistons, Doris Burke, another NBA reporter, very famous, popular NBA reporter, did test positive. Knicks owner James Dolan did also test positive for the coronavirus. And to everyone around the world, athlete or not, whoever has, any knowledge of anyone who does have this virus, we, send our wishes and prayers for you. And we hope that everyone recovers from this, because we want to get back to our normal lives and we want to get to watching our sports. But I want to thank everyone for listening to our first YouTube video, and our, continue to stream the podcast on Apple Music or Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, and we got a lot in store for you guys, so stay tuned.